The afternoon flight from Chicago to Seattle was settling into its rhythm, that peculiar hum of contained humanity at 30,000 feet. Passengers had stowed their bags, fastened their seat belts, and were beginning to lose themselves in books, tablets, or the view of clouds drifting past oval windows. In seat 12B, Catherine Wells adjusted her gray business suit and tried to focus on the quarterly report glowing on her laptop screen. At 34, she'd built a successful career as a corporate attorney, climbing the ladder with determination and sacrifice. Today she was returning from a crucial merger negotiation, and her mind should have been on the contracts still needing review. But her attention kept drifting to the small boy beside her. Her son, 5-year-old Nathan, sat rigid in the middle seat, his little hands gripping the armrests. His light brown hair was neatly combed, his white polo shirt crisp and clean. To anyone else, he might have looked like any other child preparing for takeoff, but Catherine could see the signs of the tension in his small shoulders, the rapid breathing, the fear building in his wide blue eyes. Nathan was deaf. He'd been born that way, and while Catherine had learned sign language, had hired the best specialists, had done everything money could buy to give him every advantage, there were still moments like this. Moments when the world felt too big, too overwhelming, too impossible to navigate. As the plane began to taxi, Nathan's distress grew. His hands released the armrests and began to move frantically in sign language, but in his panic, the signs were confused, desperate. Catherine tried to soothe him, her own hands moving in the familiar patterns they'd practiced. But Nathan couldn't see her clearly in his agitation, and then he began to cry. Not the quiet tears of a child trying to be brave, but the full-throated sobs of overwhelming fear. Nathan didn't know he was being loud. He'd never heard the sound of his own crying, but everyone else on the plane certainly could. Catherine felt the familiar weight of other passengers' stares, could sense the ripple of annoyance moving through the cabin. She tried everything she knew, holding Nathan, signing to him, rubbing his back, but nothing reached through his panic. As the plane lifted off the runway, his crying intensified. "I'm so sorry," Catherine murmured to the passengers around them, even though Nathan couldn't hear her apology. A businessman across the aisle frowned and put on noise-canceling headphones. A woman 2 rows up turned around with a pointed look. Catherine felt tears of frustration and helplessness sting her own eyes. She was a woman who solved problems for a living, who negotiated million-dollar deals, who never felt out of control. But here, watching her son suffer and unable to comfort him, she felt utterly powerless. Then, from the aisle seat, a small voice spoke up. "Excuse me." Catherine looked over Nathan's heaving shoulders to see a girl, perhaps 9 or 10 years old, leaning forward slightly. She had curly brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and wore a red polo shirt. Her dark eyes were filled with concern. "No judgment." "Yes?" Catherine said, barely able to get the word out. The girl's hands began to move in fluid, confident signs. "May I try to help him? I know sign language." Catherine's breath caught. She nodded, too emotional to speak, and the girl unbuckled her seatbelt. The plane had leveled off now and moved to kneel in the aisle beside Nathan's seat. The girl positioned herself where Nathan could see her, then began to sign, her movements gentle and clear. "Hi, my name is Lucy." "What's your name?" Nathan's sobs stuttered as he noticed her. Through his tears, his hands shakily formed the letters, Nathan. Lucy smiled, a warm, genuine smile that lit up her whole face. "Hi, Nathan. Are you scared of flying?" Nathan nodded, his crying quieting to hiccuping breaths as he focused on Lucy's hands. "Flying can be scary," Lucy signed. "But I know a secret." "Do you want to know the secret?" Nathan hesitated, then nodded again. Lucy's hands moved with practiced ease. "Airplanes are like big birds, and birds are very good at flying. They do it all the time. This plane is just taking us to see more clouds." "Have you ever wanted to touch a cloud?" For the first time since boarding, Nathan's expression shifted from fear to curiosity. His small hands signed back. "Clouds are soft. I think they might be like cotton candy," Lucy signed, her eyes twinkling. "But we can't eat them. We can just look at them from up here. Look." She pointed toward the window, and Nathan leaned over to see the billowing white formations outside. Catherine watched in amazement as her son's panic melted away, replaced by wonder. Lucy continued to sign, telling Nathan about the places planes could go, about how pilots were very smart and careful, about how being up high meant you could see the whole world like a puzzle spread out below. "Are you okay now?" Lucy sighed after a few minutes. Nathan nodded, a small smile on his tear-stained face. He signed, "Thank you." "You're welcome," Lucy signed back. "If you get scared again, you can wave to me. I'm right over there." She pointed to her seat across the aisle, one row back. "Okay?" Nathan nodded again, and Lucy returned to her seat. Catherine noticed an older man sitting in the window seat beside Lucy, probably in his 60s, with graying hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners as he smiled at the girl with obvious pride. Catherine unbuckled her own seatbelter and moved to kneel where Lucy had been moments before. "I'm Catherine," she said softly to Lucy, "Nathan's mother. I don't know how to thank you." "What you just did," Lucy's father spoke up. "I'm Thomas Rivera. This is my daughter, Lucy. Please, don't worry about thanks." Lucy was happy to help. "But how?" Catherine looked between them. "How does she know sign language so well?" Thomas's expression grew tender. "My wife Lucy's mother was deaf. She passed away 3 years ago from cancer. She taught Lucy to sign from the time she was a baby. It was their special language, even though my wife could also read lips and speak when she wanted to." Lucy nodded, her eyes sad but peaceful. "Mama always said that deaf people aren't broken or less than anyone else. They just experience the world differently. She taught me that sign language is beautiful, that it's a real language with its own poetry." Catherine felt tears spill down her cheeks. "Your mother sounds like she was an amazing woman." "She was," Lucy said simply. "Is Nathan deaf too?" "Yes," Catherine said. "Since birth. I've tried so hard to give him everything he needs, but sometimes," her voice broke, "sometimes I feel like I'm failing him. I see how hard the world can be for him, how people don't understand, and I don't know how to make it easier." Thomas spoke gently. "My wife used to say that the hardest part about being deaf wasn't the deafness itself, it was other people's fear of it, their assumptions that she was less capable, less intelligent, less worthy of patience and understanding." "That's exactly it," Catherine whispered. "I'm so afraid of what his life will be like. I'm a corporate attorney. I make a good living. I can afford the best schools, the best therapists, the best of everything. But I can't buy him a world that will see him for who he is instead of what he can't do." Lucy leaned forward, her young face serious. "My mom had a job. She was a teacher at a school for deaf children. She drove a car. She had friends. She laughed all the time. Being deaf was just part of who she was. Like having brown eyes or liking chocolate ice cream." Something in Lucy's words struck Catherine deeply. She'd been so focused on fixing Nathan's challenges, on preparing him for a world that might not accommodate him, that she'd perhaps forgotten to simply let him be a child, a whole, complete child who happened to be deaf. For the rest of the flight, an unlikely friendship formed. Nathan would occasionally look back at Lucy, and she would sign something that made him smile or giggle silently. Thomas and Catherine talked about their lives, their children, the grief of loss and the fear of not being enough. "My wife taught me," Thomas said, "that the gift we give our children isn't a perfect life. It's resilience, compassion, and the knowledge that they're loved exactly as they are." When the plane landed in Seattle, Catherine found herself reluctant to say goodbye to these strangers who'd become so important in just a few hours. As they gathered their bags, she asked, "Would it be all right if we stayed in touch?" I think Nathan could use a friend who understands his world." "And honestly, I could too." Thomas smiled. "We'd like that very much." Lucy knelt down to Nathan's level one more time and signed, "I hope we can be friends. Maybe we can write letters. I can teach you more signs, and you can teach me things too." Nathan's face lit up, and he signed back enthusiastically, "Yes, friends." Over the following months, the Welses and the Riveras became regular parts of each other's lives. Lucy and Nathan exchanged video messages in sign language. Thomas and Catherine met for coffee, trading parenting stories and offering each other the support that comes from being understood. For Nathan's 6th birthday, Lucy and Thomas came to his party. Catherine watched her son playing with Lucy and the other child Rena, some deaf, some hearing and felt something shift in her heart. She'd spent so much time seeing Nathan's deafness as something to overcome, but watching him laugh as Lucy signed a joke, seeing the way he navigated his world with increasing confidence, she realized that he wasn't broken. He was simply Nathan, a beautiful child with his own way of experiencing life. That evening, as she tucked Nathan into bed, he signed to her, "Lucy is my best friend. She knows me." Catherine signed back, her hands moving with love. "She does know you because she sees you, really sees you, not what you can't do, but who you are." Nathan smiled sleepily and signed, "Do you see me too, Mama?" Catherine felt her heart crack open. "I do, sweetheart. I see you, and you're perfect." Months turned into years. Catherine changed the focus of her legal work, taking on more pro bono cases involving disability rights and accessibility. She discovered a passion she never knew she had, using her skills not just to make money, but to make a difference. Nathan thrived, his confidence growing as he learned he could navigate both the deaf and hearing worlds. He attended a school with excellent deaf education programs, made friends, and showed a particular talent for art, his drawings full of the visual richness that came from experiencing life through eyes rather than ears. Lucy became like a sister to him, her presence a bridge between worlds, a reminder that understanding was possible, that connection transcended sound. One day, several years after that fateful plane ride, Catherine and Thomas sat on a bench watching their children play in the park. Nathan was 12 now, Lucy 15. They were teaching a group of younger children some basic signs, turning it into a game that had all the kids laughing. "That day on the plane changed my life," Catherine said quietly. "I was so focused on what Nathan couldn't do that I'd lost sight of who he was." Lucy gave us both such a gift. Thomas smiled. "My wife used to say that the world becomes better when we recognize that different isn't less, it's just different." Lucy learned that from her. "And now she's teaching others." "Your wife would be proud of her," Catherine said. "She would be, and I think she'd be happy knowing that her legacy, her way of seeing the world, is spreading through Lucy to others." Thomas paused. "You know, you've changed too. The woman I met on that plane was carrying the weight of the world, trying to control everything out of fear. Now you seem lighter." Catherine nodded. "I've learned to let go a little, to trust that Nathan will find his way, that he's stronger than I gave him credit for. And I've learned that community matters, to people like you and Lucy who understand, who see Nathan for who he is." As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the park, Nathan ran over and signed to his mother, "Can Lucy stay for dinner?" "Of course," Catherine signed back, then spoke aloud for Thomas's benefit, "You're both welcome." That evening, as the four of them sat around the dinner table, Catherine and Thomas talking, Lucy in Nathan's hands flying in animated signed conversation, Catherine felt a profound sense of gratitude. What could have been just another forgettable flight had instead become a turning point, all because a young girl had chosen to see a crying child not as an annoyance, but as someone who needed understanding. Sometimes, Catherine had learned, the most powerful thing we can offer another person isn't advice or solutions or even money. It's simply being seen, being understood, being met where we are with compassion instead of judgment. And sometimes that gift comes from the most unexpected place, as from a 9-year-old girl on an airplane who knew that kindness and understanding speak a language everyone can understand, whether they can hear it or not. The language of the heart, Catherine thought as she watched her son laugh silently at something Lucy had signed. The one language that truly matters, and it needed no sound at all to change the world.